Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are debuting a brand new archetype to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is an Alliance Insight, and I believe this whole archetype is called Regenesis. Name seems kind of generic. They do look like a bunch of big, badass monsters. We'll just have to see how they go. I've not really read anything from these cards, so let's just jump into it. This will be a big piece of the final reveals of Alliance Insight, so hopefully they have some good potential to them. So starting off here, we start with a level 7 Fire Warrior. Low-key could be nice for the first thing I think of, Infernoble, of course. And there's other things like Ignites as well, but let's see. 25-25 for the stats. That works really well with the new Dragon's Mind card. You can only special summon with the first effect once per turn. You can only use the second and third effects also once per turn. If a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, that's even your field or your opponent's, you can special summon this card from your hand. Okay. That's a pretty common stat line. Not a lot of small monsters are going to have it, but like so many extra deck monsters and boss monsters are going to have that kind of stat line, so that's not too crazy. And it also, like I said, takes it into account your opponent's monsters, which again, if it's a common thing, your opponent may set it up for you just if you're going second on their end board. Second effect, as a quick effect, you can tribute this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Okay, nice. It's just a walking bounce. Like that. And third effect, during your opponent's end phase, if this card is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, add it to your hand. Okay, I mean, this is a good card, right? I mean, this card to me is already kind of running in the same vein as like KASHTIRA monsters. I'm already getting a KASHTIRA vibe from this, right? Fairly easy to summon, just a walking interruption, and it has the follow-up. It's not as fast on follow-up, and it doesn't get you to the other cards in the deck, but it does just replenish itself every turn. Kind of cool. That's just a good generic card, I think. Very nice. If Isolde was still around, this feels like a pretty good search target off of Isolde to hold for next turn. Kind of. Maybe that's not the best scenario. You could just save it in hand, though, and if you can pitch it on the opponent's turn, it just comes back for free. I don't know. There's weird things. But without Isolde, it's that whole deck is totally different, so it's hard to say. Anyway, next up we have Regenesis Sage Shemet. This is a level 7 Water Spellcaster. Okay. A little bit different here. Same, stylistically looking, but, different color, different attribute. Very cool. This is 25-25 again, so if they're all 25-25 and they have that same summoning condition, they're all going to be pretty easy to summon if you can just get anything out with 25. You can special summon this card with the first effect once per turn, and second and third's also hard once per turn. If a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Nice. Second effect, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send one other Regenesis card from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, negate the activation if you do destroy that card. Okay. And third effect, during your opponent's end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add it to your hand. Okay, so it's looking like the main theme is that we're going to keep these same first and third effects, right? That same summoning condition for the most part, and that last effect, that recursion effect, if we use them to interrupt our opponent on their turn. This effect is the swap, though. The other one is tribute itself to bounce a monster, whereas this card is an Omni Negate, basically. The only downside of this Omni Negate is that you do have to send another Regenesis card from hand or field. It cannot send itself. It does say one other, which makes this a little more awkward because this card does nothing to get another card, so we would have to hope there's another card that gets it while also staying in rotation to set up this negate, because we know how powerful Omnis are. In fact, Konami's trying to recently has steered away from Omnis. But if this card's easy enough to set up with another Regenesis card, that's pretty solid, especially considering the fact that if you're sending any of the monsters on the opponent's turn, they should all theoretically just be triggering on their end phase to just get them back for free. So, cool. Still another solid card. I think they're both solid so far. Next up, we have Regenesis Dragon, Vaikra. I'm doing my best. Yeah, he's cool. He's a big wind dragon, level 8 wind dragon, 25/25 again. First effect, if you control, if a monster 25 attack or defense is on field, special summon it. Cool. Quick effect, you can target, tribute this card, then target one spell or trap your opponent controls, banish it. During your opponent's end phase of this card is engraved because it was sent through this turn, add it back to your hand. Okay, so the first guy, bounces monsters. The second girl, I guess, this one just feels more effeminate, I guess, I don't know. The second one is a Omni Negate, but you do have to send another card, not itself, and this one is similar to the first guy, except he is a spell and trap banish. That's still pretty good overall. It's good utility. Like, the first guy may be an auto 3 of, the second one may also be an auto 3 of. This one to me screams maybe 1 of or 2 of, just not an auto must play at 1,000,000 copies, but it is still decent value in and of itself, right? Especially when you know you're in that kind of matchup. Banishing is really solid there. A lot of modern spells and traps have effects engraved, so being able to handle those as well. Pretty cool. I like this card. Cool. Alright, moving on. We have Regenesis Archfiend, Bemidbar, level 8 Earth Fiend. Not a Dark Fiend, but an Earth Fiend. 25/25. You control a 2500 attack or defense on the field. Special summon it. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Regenesis card from your deck or banishment to your hand. There we go. We finally have an engine card. This card's really nice and has that same effect as well for that third effect, right? If it's sent on the opponent's turn, it adds itself back to hand. So what I like about this card specifically is that this one to me seems like the 3 of, because if you can summon this out, then this one adds her. She summons herself because he's already a 25 body on the field, and then he is your additional send off of her to set up the Omni Negate. And then, of course, he's adding himself back, which is even better because now he's being added back to hand, and he is just ready to be summoned to next turn for free, and, of course, getting you another search. He also searches cards, so you can also add the spells and traps as well, which there are some here at the end, or even banishment. So even if someone gets banished, you can add it, which this deck doesn't really do any banishing so far, but just nice to know. Cool. That's an actual engine card. So far, these have just been decent cards in a vacuum. Just decent generic cards, but this card finally is an engine card that actually gets us going. It's not a starter on its own, but if you set up anything that's 25, he's then good to go. And our final card here is Regenesis God, Deuteronomian. You know, that was never going to happen. This is what he looks like. I don't even know what I'm looking at for real, but he's cool. He's a level 10 light illusion, new illusion monster. Konami's been sprinkling them in, but no actual like illusion archetypes. 25/25 for the stats, love that. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned for your hand by banishing one face-up monster you control with 2500 attack and defense. So you can't banish anything that has either. You have to banish something that has both 25/25. You can only special summon this once per turn this way. If this card is special summoned, you can set one Regenesis Spell or Trap from your deck. Okay, I don't know exactly what they do, but hopefully they're good. Gains 2500 attack during the battle phase only. Cool. That's the only time you really care to gain it, because that means during main phase, it's still 25, which means you can summon all your additional extender boys. But when you go battle phase, he's putting the hurt on the opponent. And if this card attacks defense, which a monster inflict piercing. Fine, just good card, right? Searcher. Like, it's a +1 on summon, gets really big to push in, and even does piercing for extra damage. Cool. Solid card. You do have to banish a face-up, though, and I guess this is the effect where, like, being able to add back from banish is nice, but we'll see. Alright, as for our spell and traps, okay, that's it for the monsters. No extra deck monsters, which is important to note. And they're also different levels, right? I believe the first 2 are 7s. Yeah, the first 2 are 7s, and the second 2 are 8s. So, like, technically you can make rank 8s or rank 7s, but, like, the whole archetype isn't based on that. And then level 10 for the last guy. Alright. This card is just called Regenesis. Okay. Normal spell, you can only activate, use the first 2 effects once per turn. Take one Regenesis monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Or, if you control a Regenesis monster, you can add one monster with 2500 attack and defense from your deck to your hand instead. That's interesting. I don't know how many cards exist I'd have to look it up after this. How many monsters exist that have exactly 25/25 to be rotated after this? But that's cool. If this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it, then target a Regenesis monster in grave, special summon it. Love that. Cool. So even if like you had to do something turn 1 or something, or they didn't end up coming back for whatever reason, being able to get one back is really solid there. I like that. Yeah, this is a good card. I mean, it's just a Rhoda. It can send something. I don't know what you'd send it for, like for what reason you'd ever send these. These don't really do much in grave. You kind of just want them in hand. I don't know why you're ever foolishing them. But okay, still a good card because you're just going to use it as Rhoda. I like it. Next up, Quickplay Spell. This is Torah Regenesis. Quickplay Spell, you can only use the first 2 effects once per turn. You cannot special summon the X deck for the rest of this turn after this card resolves. Also, special summon 1 Regenesis monster from your deck, but send it to the graveyard during your opponent's end phase. Ooh, okay. Nice. I mean, that's really solid, to be honest. This card, with the restriction, that's pretty brutal on this card. This card reminds me of that Mech Knight, the Quickplay Mech Knight card that just summons one from deck, the World Legacy one, that summons a Mech Knight, but you're like hard locked into Mech Knights and stuff. Reminds me of those cards. This one's pretty good. Again, like if this deck doesn't have any extra deck monsters, you're not really that concerned about the extra deck, but just being able to summon one even into a board, you know what I mean? Just summon any of these guys, go from there. It's pretty good. I like that. Even being able to summon your Archfiend, and then Archfiend search another, summon 2 guys and go in. Also, during your main phase, except the turn this card is sent to the grave, banish this card from grave, target one of your banished. So this only targets the banished guys, but special summon 1 back. So that's still cool. Nice follow-up effect for later. And lastly, we have Regenesis Birth, our mandatory trap card. Konami just makes a mandatory trap card for every new archetype these days. It's kind of funny. This just looks like a bunch of planets. It's a continuous trap, which can be good if you can use it every turn. I mean, the new Crystron continuous trap is really good, so we'll keep an eye on that. 2 hardness return effects, but you can only pick 1 per turn. So you can't use both in the same turn, but you can pick 1. You can send a Regenesis monster from your deck to the graveyard to target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Change it to face-down defense position. This does foolish as cost. So what I like about this is this sends on the opponent's turn. What was kind of weird to me about the first card is like, yes, it was like you can foolish a Regenesis, but this is a normal spell card. So if you foolish one on your turn, they don't trigger because they only come back if they were sent during, like, on your opponent's turn. So I was just like, why would you ever foolish then? This one is different because this is going to foolish as cost 2 Book of Moon an opponent's monster, which, by the way, you can do every single turn, which I like, having that just long-term, being able to hit them every turn. And then on end phase, you're getting that monster back. So it's like a slow search combined with a Book of Moon. This card could actually see play. I would not be surprised about that. And second effect, during your opponent's turn, you can send this face-up card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard. So summon as many Regenesis monsters with different names as possible from your hand, graveyard, and banishment, but send them to the graveyard during the end phase. Pretty cool. That's pretty strong. I mean, I would guess that more often than not, you're using this first effect on, like, if you go first, right? I would imagine you're using this first effect when you flip this card up on the opponent's turn that first time. But it is possible that at any point after that first turn, you could be using this second effect. I think this is actually a pretty good trap. I mean, yes, it's fully a one-of. Like, this is almost all traps these days. Unless it's like a full-on trap archetype, they scream one-of. And this one is exactly that. But it does scream potentially strong enough to be worth it, right? Just the fact that you're getting a slow search follow-up on top of the potential to just, like, OTK your opponent with that second effect. You just get a bunch of bodies back on the next turn, which is really cool. But yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. So, cool. Listen, I'd have to do more digging. Like, the biggest question here is that this deck has very few starters, right? This first effect, not even a starter, right? It adds a Regenesis, but none of them can summon unless there's a 25 on field. So even this card reads like a Rhoda, a good Rhoda, and a searcher for anything in the deck. The deck doesn't have any starters yet. So I'm getting half KASHTIRA vibes, but the difference was Fenrir and Unicorn are starters. These guys are not starters. These cards are almost hitting me a little more like Therion, like the Therion archetype. This card is technically a starter, but it also hard locks you out of the extract. So you could go summon Archfiend search for another one, summon another one, and get it, you know, interruption out of it. But that's not, it's not taking you any further than that. So this seems like more like an assisting engine for a deck that is very consistent and good at just putting a 25 body on the field. But after that, I'm not entirely sure what we're looking at here. But I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's like KASHTIRA adjacent, but maybe just not quite as good as them. But we'll see. I think this is really interesting, though. I'm definitely going to have to do some digging and look through what archetype / even generic 2500 monsters that exist, because these guys could be really, really interesting. So, yeah, maybe I'll make a video soon talking about that and just going through what these guys might work with. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. These definitely are pretty open-ended. Other than that Quickplay Spell, there are no restrictions here whatsoever. So there's definitely big potential. But we need to do some digging first to see what they can actually work with. So I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. This is a big chunk. This knocks us down, I think, all the way to like 26 more cards left in the set, which is not a ton. But I'll obviously bring you any news that comes between now and the end of the set, and even then on. So subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on all things Yu-Gi-Oh! News, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.